my donuts?
I'm Alicia Hernan, the co-founder of the Messy Family Project and co-host of the Messy Family Podcast with my husband, Michael. We have been married almost 29 years. We have 10 children. Our oldest is almost 30, down to a 10-year-old, and we have 5 beautiful grandchildren. And we have been doing the podcast for 9 years, and we've been in full-time ministry serving families for the past 4.5 years.
Hi, I'm Michael Hernan, and we have a real passion for families. Now, I come from actually a divorced family. My parents separated when I was in high school, and really from that day on, I had a desire to figure out what is family life all about? What does real marriage look like? And from that moment, I was always looking for mentors, looking for the ideal and perfect family.
Really, we started our ministry out of love for family life and from thinking back to our own struggles as a young family. And I think that struggle helped us to realize that there isn't just one way to be a Catholic parent. Couples is relying on the grace of the sacrament, is that the grace to be a parent comes from the sacrament of matrimony. Our anniversary weekend, I think it was like our 20th anniversary, that we went away for the weekend and we recorded 4 podcasts. And we did it really just answering questions as an older brother or sister. We knew that we were not experts, we're not theologians, we're not counselors, we're just parents.
So welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to be here.
Hello, messy families. Welcome to the podcast. We love talking to parents about all things having to do with family life, the crazy ups and downs of messy family. Right? Welcome to the Messy Family Podcast. I'm Mike Hernan.
And I'm Alicia Hernan.
And we are on a mission to empower moms and dads to embrace their sacred calling.
The Messy Family Project hopes simply just to make you feel normal, to let you know that this is the craziness of family life and the chaos. This is our path to become the best version of ourselves, to be truly happy and fulfilled. And it's how we're going to change the world. And we'd love for you to join us on this journey and be a part of this wonderful series, Family.
High and flying or deep down by the sea, anywhere we wish to be. When we're loved, we're happy and free. Come together, we're all family. Time to shine a brighter light in our world. Time for unity and peace. Come and see how great we can be. Come together, we're all family. Come together, we're all family.
Hi, we're Mike and Alicia Hernan of the Messy Family Project, and we love talking to parents about the struggles and challenges of ordinary family life.
And today we're going to talk about parenting as a path to holiness. I thought I was a good person before I had kids. I mean, that's the easiest way to say it. But parenting really is a path to holiness. And this really is the way that God can form us and create us into who we really are meant to be.
Right. And it's a question of whether we're going to resent the struggles and challenges that we enter into with our parenting, or are we going to embrace those as opportunities to become the best version of ourselves, the person who God made us to be? And this is really what parenting is all about, is looking at how we not just survive parenting, but how do we thrive? As parents, we don't have a seminary. We just have kids, right? You know, these kids are here to form us and shape us. And through this path, we're going to be changed and transformed. But as we go through this, you might be asking yourselves, how do I, in the day-to-day life, changing diapers, running around the house, how in the chaos and messiness of our home, how can that be a path to holiness? Stay tuned.
But before you hear from us and the expert that we have to talk to, let's hear from some other parents, and let's hear some of the questions and struggles that they have.
So parenting is hard, and the reality is that it's really hard, but you have to keep going, and you have to give it to God every single day.
I think that when we dated, I'd spend 2 or 3 hours being impressive, or at least trying to be impressive. I smelled good, I tried to look good, and we did fun things. And now in marriage, and especially with kids, right, you're around someone all the time.
I was very self-centered and very, very self-focused and doing things always on my time, my schedule. And having been married for over 7 years and having 3 children, recognizing how I need to change the focus. Looked at it from the marriage standpoint of what does my wife need, and asking her flat out, what do you need of me right now? Can I pick up the kids or drop them off? Which one would be more useful for you? Rather than which one I just simply want to do. It's more convenient for my schedule. And sometimes I win and sometimes I lose, but at least now I can see that the other center is the focus.
It's very important, and I said, you are not the saint, you are not going to be a good father. And I am not, certainly, but the Lord has helped me to learn, especially when I have to deal with difficult situations in our family life.
I read this book recently, and the author said that holiness and prayer has to begin with this foundation of a poverty, awareness of like where we stand before God and who we really are. And I think, gosh, being a parent of small kids and being married has surely reminded me every day and shown me where I fall short and where I absolutely need God's grace, because my own abilities just are not sufficient. And so we kind of lean into that sacramental grace in marriage.
I had the experience where we had planned to go to adoration and then morning mass, and as I'm sure everybody knows, it takes quite a bit of planning to make this happen with a little child, especially a 6-month-old. And so we ended up getting there and feeling pretty happy that we were sitting there in adoration, and then Kristen turns to me and says, "Drew, I think the baby has a poopy diaper." And then I go to look inside our diaper bag, and there's no diapers. And so I spend the next half an hour running to Walgreens and getting new diapers. And by the time I get back, mass was halfway over. And so it was obviously, frustrating to me, but that was, a moment that God was calling me to serve through this poopy diaper.
Parenting is a path to holiness, because our goal as parents is to get our treasures to heaven. And so, yes, I think that you do. And I think also that we deserve time off for purgatory for being in labor.
I definitely don't think we knew how challenging parenting would be before we had kids. There's only so much you can see in like your nieces and nephews. So yeah, I definitely feel like parenting is our path to holiness. I never thought like I had such a temper before I had kids or could get so angry about things. So it just like exposes so many things within myself and within you. So yeah, so many, I guess, things that should be worked on our way to path to heaven or before we get there.
Yes, every single day, parenting is tough. However, with God, all things are possible.
Now that we've heard from some of the parents about the challenges and struggles with parenting, particularly as we look at this as a parenting as a path to holiness, we're so excited to have with us today Father Boniface Hicks. Father, you're a spiritual director for me. We've been a friend for a while, but you're an author, a speaker, a teacher, and you're the director of the Institute for Ministry Formation at St. Vincent Seminary, and it's so great to have you on the program today.
Thanks. Well, it's great to be with you.
Yeah. So we've talked for many years over lots of these things, and you've really helped really kind of get me going in the right direction and renewing my spiritual life. But for a lot of parents, they often look at the call to married life not really as a call. They don't necessarily look at it as something holy or special or what have you. It's just, that's what we do.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes, well, at least we have said this, is that like we have our prayer lives and our, lives of relationships as single people, and, things are moving along, and then you get married and you have children, and all of a sudden you feel like, I'm a horrible person.
I don't feel very holy anymore. But I don't think that's true, right? I mean, if you could you speak to us, just give those parents that encouragement that that there is even if you don't feel like you're getting holier, that you don't feel like you're getting closer to God, actually parenting is a way of bringing you into deeper relationship with God the Father.
Absolutely. Yeah, to speak to the comment you made, Mike, about people not considering marriage to be a vocation, it is a sort of natural desire, and so people can kind of move along. There was marriage before it was a sacrament, but Christ has taken that natural desire, that natural union, and he's raised it to a new level so that it really becomes the image for the rest of us for what holiness is supposed to look like. So spousal love is actually the image of holiness, what you're living and struggling to live more perfectly as you already encounter that in your relationship with each other, let alone when you then bring new life into the world in children. The challenges that are there are really the challenges that all of us have. I'm constantly using the spousal analogy to explain to people what a life of prayer should look like.
Isn't that crazy to think about that for as lay people, as a married couple, that you as a priest, that religious would look to us, and that's what Christ says in the scriptures, right? And that's something that's really, it takes some thought as we're sitting there in the kind of daily grind. And as Alicia said, sometimes just struggling with our own weakness, struggling with our own virtue or coming out old habits, right? You know, that it seems so natural, and sometimes we don't feel very good or that we're being effective in this path. And if it is a calling, which it is, then how do those two work? Where we have those struggles with anger or impatience or all this, and yet this is supposed to be a vocation. We're supposed to be a witness to the world about Christ's love for the church. It doesn't always feel like that.
I think part of the problem we have is the idea of holiness that's often floating around out there is something ethereal and strange and otherworldly, when in fact Jesus says, love one another as I love you. This is the new commandment, that to actually love is at the heart of holiness. Holiness is to be like God, and in Jesus Christ, in Christianity, we've understood that God is love. And so holiness is the perfection of love. Well, how do you perfect love? Not in a chamber somewhere off by yourself, by loving people, being in relationship with people. And as you know very well, it's hard to love people who really know you and that you really know, to persevere in that, to grow in that. It has a way of bringing all the stuff out. We can sort of put on a front for, an hour, a day, a week, maybe a year, for a little bit of time, but to actually live that out for a lifetime. That's where all the stuff is going to come out.
So I think that sometimes married people kind of get distracted and they look at religious vocations and they think, oh, that's what holiness is. It's going to be, a deep prayer life. It's going to be, not that married people can't have a deep prayer life, but I think that we tend to look at the consecrated vocation and like, oh, that's what we should be like. But what I heard you saying before is that as a religious, you are actually looking to married people and saying, well, that's what my relationship with God should be like. I always feel like it's this beautiful symbiosis between the religious and the lay vocations that we're supporting each other, because there's things that we can both learn. But I think that whole idea of we're floating through the sky, thinking about holy things all the time, that's just not what I'm called to as a mom. I'm not. I'm just trying to love this child in front of me, but that's holiness. Right there, when I respond in that way,
You stumbled on it for a moment when you talked about deep prayer life. So this is the idea that we have that somehow deep prayer life develops in a vacuum. What does a deep prayer life look like? It looks like a spousal relationship. A deep prayer life looks like a total self-emptying love. A deep prayer life looks like actually opening up the stuff that is in me. And there's a way that some people's idea of a deep prayer life can actually be very guarded and suppressing a lot of things and actually very superficial. Just because somebody spends a lot of time in the chapel doesn't mean they have a deep prayer life. It's when they're actually able to open their hearts, which becomes a kind of necessity if your marriage is going to last, and which your children help to bring out if your spouse hasn't already. It's those openings of the heart that actually are the stuff for a deep prayer life. And so when you, living in this context of love and marriage and family, start to come more deeply before the Lord, your heart is already open, things are already raw, the stuff is already out there, and then relating that to God comes even more immediately.
Can you go a little further with that? Because when I'm thinking about, the young parents sitting out there who they're in their marriage and parenting, and stuff is coming up within them, right? And they're
issues
are coming up. What do they do with that in their prayer? How would you advise someone a young parent or any parent who came to you who's kind of feeling those things coming up, those things that God's calling them to deal with in their life? How can they really bring that to prayer?
Well, I love to help parents to reference their own experience as parents, in the sense that I love to say to a mother, you know what it's like to hold your baby and how helpless your baby is. And when your baby cries out, you don't love your baby less, you love your baby more, you want to run to your baby. Well, the stuff that's coming up in your heart is like you crying out and like you being that baby that God wants to run to and hold and take care of. And so just sort of reversing polarity on that, putting yourself in the position. And how does God feel towards you? The same way that you feel towards your baby, with absolute overflowing affection, love, willingness to die for that little infant, for that little child,
who
to
gives
do whatever
you nothing.
you can.
Who all they do is give you inconvenience.
Give you need. That's all they give you.
That's right. Well, because actually that's how I think I really had a deep experience of the love of God the Father, was holding my own child. And there was such an outpouring there. And I'll never forget sitting in that room late at night as she woke me up, I had to change her diaper. She spit up, all these things, but I still loved her. And that's when I heard God the Father whisper, and now you have a glimpse of how much I love you, my son. And I feel like that as parents, we need to always kind of do our own reflection on our lives. Like that's what God is doing for you. As every good parent, he is better than any of the best parents we have out there. and receiving that kind of love, receiving and almost meditating on our own life can really help draw us in deeper, right? I mean, that's beautiful.
That's right. And that's what it means to be a sacrament. So these things are sacramental. You're having an experience of Christ in each other, in your marriage, in your parenting. There's a reality of Christ's presence there, his heart, his face, the experience of being loved, of loving. It's all wrapped up in that sacramental reality.
And we also, we talk a lot about the idea or the importance of identity. Identity, belonging, and mission are the three things that a family confers on its members. And when I think about parents, particularly in this whole path, it's like they need to be confirmed in who they are, that we are called to a unique mission. And this path is more important than any job, any other title, any career, any profession. We can be replaced in all those other roles. Yeah. But as a mom and dad, we can't. And before that, as a spouse, if we want to really fully embrace this calling, this really sacred calling, and that's part of our mission, is to help parents elevate their minds, thinking about that being a mom and dad is a sacred calling, but then to embrace it. Any final encouragements that you might have for parents as they're kind of just struggling with the day-to-day and helping us reset our even our imagination to what God has in store for family life?
Well, I guess maybe to speak a word of encouragement about, as you said, you can't give what you don't have, and which I understand where that was coming from. But also, sometimes in the process of giving it, we receive it. So if we're open to receiving it, and some people that didn't grow up didn't receive a sense of mission, identity, belonging in their own family, have had a conversion or a deepening of faith, and now are in the position to give what they didn't receive at home, but in the process of giving it are also taking on a mission and are seeing how much God entrusts them with the responsibility, with the opportunity to bestow that on their children, and they can have a sense of belonging that's also received through that. And I think also, I guess I also would want to encourage people to understand, which should be obvious from our conversation, it's messy, right? There isn't a prescription. Right. I often see people beating themselves up about not meeting this ideal. I ought to be doing this, or it's supposed to look like this, or I see this family that did it this way, and so I've got to do it this. Well, it's messy. It would be written out in Scripture what it's supposed to look like, and we don't find that.
No.
God has not revealed that. So it means that he's already put it in our nature. He's elevated it. He's infused that with a divine worldview, and then we live that out. As you said, it's a secular vocation, so it can't be, we're not living out medieval parenthood here. It's not possible.
Yeah.
We have to live out parenthood in now, in this place. And that's going to be new. And so we have to give ourselves a little bit of room to discover that and invent it and receive it and support each other in it and, and all of those kinds of things. But giving a little bit of, taking a deep breath and entering into it. And then at the same time, I don't want to make it sound, I don't want to lower the ideal in the sense of it really does lead to holiness, which is the perfection of love. And that's amazing, to actually live out the moral calling, the generosity, which is within the family, and that's the intense, the white hot center of it, but that flows out everywhere else. And in this way, every Christian family should be radiant compared to the very dark society that's around us. And that perfection of love shines forth in the self-sacrifice and the attention and the affirmation, the ability to embrace, to listen, to support, to be completely invested in other people's lives, to the transformation from self, all of these kinds of things are amazing.
Yeah,
the holiness that God is calling us to and providing for us is something amazing.
And it really brings true joy. We give this little bit, and he just overabundantly blesses us, with joy and life. And it's life's greatest adventure.
It is. It really is.
Family life, it's greatest adventure.
So we've got a lot to unpack here with parenting as a path to holiness. Father Boniface, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the insights, reflections. You're going to want to stay with us as we unpack this and give you some kind of key takeaways for this whole episode. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we did. But to sum up for you, we have some ideas for you to implement. First, live a reflective life, recognizing that all you do in your home, the humdrum and sometimes boring stuff if we do in our daily lives in the home, when we give it to God, we make it holy.
Embrace parenting as your sacred calling. Don't set expectations for your prayer life. Life of a married person looks very different. So getting up in the middle of the night, with your child and attending to them, think of it just like as a religious would get up in the middle of the night to pray. That's really what you're doing. That is your offering to the Lord.
Remember that it's not your job to make your children into saints. It's their job to make you into a saint, right? I didn't realize I had an anger problem until I had kids. God helps us bring these all up to show us his love.
Knew the well according to your season of life. Sometimes we can go to daily mass. Sometimes we can have an hour adoration, but sometimes you can't. But we should always be striving to come back to the Lord and to renew our relationship with him through our daily prayer, which looks very different according to where you are in your season of life.
We've given you a lot to think about as we talked about parenting as your path to holiness. Hope is that this whole series on family is really an opportunity for you to have a deeper conversation between you and your spouse, that you would grow in the way that you're understanding your sacred calling as a parent.
And we hope that you join us next time for our next topic, which is going to be preparing your child and yourself for adolescence.
And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.
We hope this episode has been a blessing to you. And if it has, we ask you prayerfully consider supporting Shalom World so we can create more episodes, more shows like this that will serve families throughout the world.
Yeah, we've been excited and honored to partner with Shalom World on this. And we want to invite you and really encourage you to make a donation in support of Shalom World. No gift is too small and no gift is too large. We'll take all donations to support Shalom World and continue to evangelize the culture.
Are you searching for purpose of life? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.